All racehorses train during the day except for this one, who uniquely trains at night. Unlike others who start at the crack of a whip, he starts at the sound of a bell. Each time the bell rings, he dashes off like an arrow shot from Lison's bow, unfazed by the darkness of night. By day, this horse sleeps, leaving reporters who wish to take pictures with him waiting outside. These unusual behaviors stem from his tragic fate. Seabiscuit, the offspring of the renowned racehorse Hardtack, possessed purebred lineage but was cast aside by his owner at birth due to his small stature. At 6 months old, he was sent to a famous horse trainer, but to no avail. His noble bloodline seemed irrelevant to his fate, as Seabiscuit spent most of his time either sleeping or on his way to sleep. Moreover, his appetite was astonishing. Despite his small size, he consumed twice as much as a full-grown horse. To the trainer, Seabiscuit's only purpose seemed to be serving as a training companion for better horses, a so-called practice horse. As he aged, Seabiscuit became increasingly temperamental, forcing the trainer to sell him for a mere $2,000. Another horse faced an even more tragic fate. A minor injury led his owner to consider ending his life. A destitute trainer stepped in to buy the horse, saving its life and sparing the cost of a bullet for the owner. The trainer then began to care for the injured horse, a scene witnessed by Charles. Charles, a businessman who made his fortune in automobiles, filled his estate's stables with cars instead of horses. The tragic death of his son and a divorce from his wife deeply affected him. It wasn't until after attending a horse race that he began his equestrian journey. Curious about the trainer's story, Charles approached him one evening to ask why he bought a horse that could no longer race. The trainer responded that the horse's injury should not erase its value. Charles was struck by the trainer's perspective, sensing an extraordinary mindset. After extending an invitation, they agreed to collaborate. As they were considering purchasing a fearless horse, Seabiscuit caught the trainer's eye. Despite his small stature and clumsy limbs, Seabiscuit exhibited a stubborn and tenacious spirit. The trainer believed Seabiscuit had the potential to become a champion in racing. Charles bought Seabiscuit and paired him with a young jockey who, before even mounting, had a large piece of his clothing bitten off by Seabiscuit. This untamable spirit appeared indomitable for the time being. At a loss, the trainer discovered a jockey named Red, who was fighting a group of men alone but fearlessly. In many ways, Red seemed no different from Seabiscuit. Upon entering the stable and facing the temperamental Seabiscuit, Red, undaunted, managed to calm him down with half an apple. It wasn't so much that Red could tame Seabiscuit, but rather that he understood him better. At first, Seabiscuit's racing was a mess, zigzagging across the track, which was both amusing and frustrating. His long stint as a training companion had almost made him forget his natural talent. The trainer decided to change the training approach, taking Seabiscuit to the woods to run freely and rediscover his speed without any constraints. There, Seabiscuit ran like a whirlwind, swiftly disappearing from sight. After some time, Seabiscuit easily broke the track record. Charles immediately arranged his first race, adhering to the belief that practice is the only way to test truth. The plan was simple. Let Seabiscuit follow the strongest contenders and then sprint to the finish near the end. Red agreed wholeheartedly. However, as soon as the race started, some competitors deliberately blocked his way, nearly causing Red to fall off. Enraged, Red confronted them, forgetting all about the trainer's instructions. This tactic clearly didn't suit Seabiscuit, who gradually slowed down in the latter half of the race and was overtaken by all, ending his first race in defeat. Worried about losing his job, Red approached Charles and asked to borrow $10, hoping to gauge Charles' reaction. Surprisingly, Charles not only didn't reprimand him but also generously gave him $20, deeply touching Red, who hadn't expected such generosity from someone he barely knew. In the following race, Red remembered the trainer's advice and kept Seabiscuit alongside the other horses until it was time to sprint to the finish. No one expected the small-framed Seabiscuit to cross the finish line first, creating a miracle and gaining a large following. With seemingly no competition left, Red began to indulge in drinking, and even Seabiscuit was nowhere to be seen. Charles, in front of the cameras, boasted about his racehorse and in his excitement even gave away Seabiscuit's horseshoes. This infuriated the trainer, who reminded Charles that Seabiscuit was a racehorse, not a pet, and winning races required ample training time. Charles believed Seabiscuit was invincible, but the trainer showed him a newspaper article about a horse named War Admiral, who was 1.8 meters tall and unbeaten. Intrigued, Charles wanted to prove who the real champion was. Charles issued a challenge to War Admiral via radio, but War Admiral's owner was reluctant, seeing it as a mismatch due to the considerable difference in the horses' sizes. To entice War Admiral into racing, Charles offered a staggering $100,000 prize, breaking horse racing records, yet War Admiral's owner remained uninterested. To showcase Seabiscuit's strength, Charles organized a high-stakes race. Seabiscuit performed exceptionally well, leading up to the finish line where Red, thinking victory was assured, let his guard down. Suddenly, the second-place horse surged ahead and Red, as if blind to the challenge, was overtaken, losing the first-place position at the last moment. The trainer was puzzled about how Seabiscuit could lose a race despite a clear lead. Faced with harsh criticism, Red had no choice but to reveal the truth. Due to past involvement in illegal boxing, he was actually blind in his right eye. The trainer believed Red was no longer fit for the job and considered firing him. However, Charles disagreed, using the trainer's own words against him. You cannot dismiss someone's value just because they're injured. This statement, originally given by the trainer to Charles, was now returned to him, making War Admiral's owner even more dismissive, mocking Seabiscuit in the newspapers as insignificant. To provoke War Admiral into racing, Charles took Seabiscuit on a national tour, challenging War Admiral's owner and questioning his fear of losing. Under public pressure, War Admiral's owner finally agreed to a race, but with conditions. The start should be signaled by a bell, not the usual machine. Charles accepted, and the race was set for November 1st. Knowing your enemy is key to victory, so they observed War Admiral closely. His impressive stature and beautiful coat exuded a regal aura. Charles and his team watched his training from afar, awestruck by his speed. Realizing the challenge, the trainer devised a new strategy. Seabiscuit must lead, as trailing behind War Admiral might mean never catching up. With 2 weeks left, they began night training to improve Seabiscuit's response to the bell and Red's perception as a rider. Initially, they used both a whip and a bell, but soon Seabiscuit would sprint at the sound of the bell alone. With preparations complete, they were ready for the skill competition, but an unexpected incident occurred. Red's former boss asked him to ride his horse to increase its sale value, leveraging Red's fame. Out of loyalty, Red agreed, but during the ride, a tractor backfired nearby, startling the horse. Before Red could free his feet from the stirrups, the horse reared up, dragging him for several meters before crashing into a wall. Doctors found 12 fractures in Red's leg, requiring an 8-hour surgery. Charles, who had grown to see Red as a son, waited anxiously outside. Fortunately, Red could walk after surgery but could no longer continue his career. Charles wanted to cancel the race with War Admiral, but Red refused, calling in his friend George, a fellow jockey, and briefing him on everything about Seabiscuit. On the day of the race, the event garnered national attention. NBC broadcasted live and businesses operated half-day so employees could listen in. Over 40 million Americans tuned in. As the race started with the sound of a bell, Seabiscuit took the lead as planned, unsettling War Admiral's owner. Before long, War Admiral caught up and the two horses raced side by side, much to the delight of War Admiral's owner. Unbeknownst to him, this was exactly what Charles and his team had hoped for. At the final turn, George had Seabiscuit look War Admiral in the eye, and with a sudden burst of energy, Seabiscuit sprinted ahead, leaving War Admiral far behind. The crowd rose to cheer for Seabiscuit, who reached the finish line first. The victory brought jubilation to everyone except War Admiral's owner, whose face was marked by embarrassment. However, Seabiscuit's relentless racing and overexertion eventually led to a complete ligament tear. The vet suggested that he could never race again, and recommended euthanasia. When Red saw Seabiscuit again, the horse was bandaged all over and walked with difficulty. Red immediately dropped his crutches and embraced him. Their relationship had transcended that of master and servant. They were more like close friends. Despite Seabiscuit's condition, Red remained undaunted and never gave up. He performed daily rehabilitation for Seabiscuit, took him for walks in the forest on good days, told him horse stories, and rested together. One day, Red was surprised to find Seabiscuit able to trot again. Red promptly saddled Seabiscuit and fixed his own leg with a stick. He had a mini racetrack cleared and began daily rehabilitation training. Soon, Seabiscuit regained his former speed, seemingly unaffected by his illness. They soon faced another major race. Red didn't hesitate to sign up, wanting to compete with Seabiscuit, but Charles objected, fearing an accident could leave Red completely disabled. Persuaded by his wife, Charles reluctantly agreed to let them race. Red prepared thoroughly for the race, creating a special set of protective gear for himself. The excitement was palpable as the old partners took to the field again. At the start, Red planned to keep pace with the second-place horses before, but Seabiscuit fell behind and the gap widened. Just as they were about to give up, George, who had once ridden Seabiscuit, slowed down his horse, hoping to inspire Seabiscuit's competitive spirit. When their horses were side by side, Seabiscuit's fighting spirit was indeed reignited. At that moment, winning the race or the applause didn't matter. What mattered was the joy of racing and the realization of the value of their lives. Thanks for watching. Make sure you subscribe and turn on notifications so you can watch more videos like this.